Alright, let's do today's video. A bit exhausted, which is a good thing. So today's video is know what you're doing means I've done it before. Most of the actual work is experimenting, research, and fucking around. Not bad. Yeah, it's probably one of those arrogant moments that I had. I don't really remember it, but it's probably a conversation I was having with my father. Cute, right? So here's the thing. Uh, Maybe it's easier for me to approach it from knowledge. Oh, I scratched it way too soon, but that's basically where the video is. Know what you're doing means done it before. Most of the actual work is experimenting, research, and fucking around. Funny, I use the word work here because I feel like when you know what you're doing, it becomes kind of like it triggers a certain complacency in you, right? It takes away your focus. It removes you from yourself because ultimately our existence is based on expression. And if we're doing something we've done before, then we probably have expressed it before. And that kind of like puts us in a like vault of redundancy, right? Now, don't get me wrong, that kind of thing is maybe necessary because ultimately it allows us to how resolve within ourselves how to express differently. But that's a different kind of focus because the way this note is written is your attempt at expressing to the outside world. And here there are like two things. There's you're expressing your reality to the world, or you're expressing yourself to your reality. I've had a couple of videos, if not like tons of them, where I discuss kind of like that unique connection that you have between the world and the unique connection that you have with your reality. And the truth behind our expression is like we kind of create something in our head and we try to like put it outside, and that's when we get feedback, right? And most of the time, when we know what we're doing, that means in a way we got the positive feedback, and so ultimately, have we we get to we be, we get to focus on we get to revert to our reality because the outside world is not claiming our attention. So let's recap. There's the expression to the outside world and the expression to yourself. Expression to yourself is done within your reality, within your realm, within your creative like structure. And the expression for the outside world is basically created with whatever's tangible, whatever's common, whatever's shared with others. And the key that I don't want to kind of like drive off from is that effectively you can't get chances are you won't get different feedback from doing the same thing. Because once you get feedback, you're supposed to have adjustment to it. And it's funny because uh, I feel that's the difference between the pros and the amateurs. And this is taking me to two stories. My head is kind of like pointing two stories. One story is I remember when I was in school, in university, we did an interview with the chief executive officer of like PepsiCo in Lebanon. Everyone knows Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi. And we were discussing to him about his view of like management and how people can like level up and all that shit. And he responded in a beautiful way where he described that he has guy that operates a machine that after 20 years came asking for a promotion. And granted, uh, he came asking for a raise. And granted, from a structure's perspective, his existence merits a raise. He's been there for 20 years. But the claim that the guy came with was like, I have 20 years of experience, of which the CEO kind of like asked the questions like, do you have 20 years of experience, or do you have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times? And that's funny because at one point they basically he just went got into that loop. And I understand because like all he's doing is operating the machine, right? But even that you could kind of like express yourself differently with or grow through. And I feel like everything could bring out more of you, everything, because it's not about whatever it is you're doing, it's the approach that you're doing it. So that's where kind of knowledge comes from, because like knowledge is based on whatever you're doing is is making you receive the feedback, receive something from the outside. And once that feedback kind of becomes stale, then ultimately you have knowledge. But when the feedback kind of like is always, even though you're doing the same thing, the, the feedback becomes a bit more. Feedback is never stable. Let's just say that because like, there's evolution and mutation. That, in a way, is basically not necessarily knowledge. It's more of an understanding, right? So the idea is it's the same thing that you're doing, but when the approach is different, that's kind of you experimenting. That is kind of you fucking around. What if we do this? And what if we do that? What if we do this? It's a broadening of your scope because uh, knowing something is an angular perspective. Like it's one angle, or two, or three, or four. But the depth is the dimensions all around where it exists and how it affects all these dimensions. So in a way, the difference between when you know something, the chances are you have a job. When you understand something, chances are you're working. And it's fun. You can't say jobbing, can you? Right? It's like my job is this. It's kind of like a dedicated word for an activity. It could be a singular activity, or it could be a group of singular activities that make the whole. But that's the approach of a job. Whilst I'm working is more direct towards like your activity. It's not a label on the activity that you're doing. And so I've met a lot of people, and it's either like my work or my job. And there's always that reflection of like I'm working, I'm at my job working. But that kind of takes away from just the difference in grammar. Like what are you working on versus what is your job, right? Yeah, I'm okay with that separation because like the origin of this note is know what you're doing means you've done it before. It practically is I know how to do my job. And when you're actually working, the actual work that happens, the creative endeavor, the expression of your true self, in that mundane, repetitive like structure of a job, you actually get to You get to explore and express yourself to your reality, which allows you to see the same thing that you've been doing from a different angle. And whether mentally or physically, like just kind of like experiment with it, fuck around with it. Well, if you're experimenting mentally with something, is like, what if we do it this way, or what if we do this, or what if that happens, or what if this is involved? All of these are you just kind of like exploring your mental like framework towards that one thing that's kind of like there. It still looks the same, but the approach completely like changes. Why this was a relevant note at the time, I have no idea. Well, I do because like right now, I kind of like. It's funny. It's just like one of my favorite quotes is like, if you're not embarrassed by how you were the year before, then you haven't learned anything new. And this is practically me. Like these notes are me practically fucking around in my own head and like messing with my reality and experimenting, trying to have like a bit more of an understanding. Fun times. All right, my babies. Yalla. I love you and have a good night. Have a great night.